Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome. What a nice energy in the room. It's so nice not to have a Teams call and see nobody. This is really nice, seeing people in the flesh. Thank you for joining us in this very special month, Women's Month, where we celebrate women and juniors in law and banking. I'm very happy to be with you. And I told the technical guy, if anything pops off or out or whatever, he can do anything to fix it. I'm not precious, so I'm going to sit still. My name is Anneleen van Wyk, and I'm very privileged to be your facilitator today. My career hasn't followed a straight line. When I started in the BProc classroom at the Randse Afrikaanse Universiteit, my second year was filled with Professor J.C. Sonnekes. Okay, I think you will all know that left me with a few unforgettable experiences. Looking back now, I think that's a conversation best have with my therapist. I chose to move into business development, coaching and consulting after I completed my law degree. But I've always stayed very close to the legal profession, and I'm in absolute awe to be here with you tonight. Think of me as the conductor of the orchestra. So instead of having violins and trumpets in front of me, I have razor-sharp legal insights and minds. My job today is to keep the rhythm, to make sure that no one steals the spotlight, and also to remind you that this is not just a celebration, but a very authentic conversation that we're going to have today. It would be impossible to gather here for Women's Month without honoring the moment that echoes through history. On 9 August 1956, over 20,000 women from all walks of life and all races marched to the Union buildings in Pretoria to protest against the unjust pass laws. Unfortunately, their petition was rejected by the then Prime Minister, Minister J.G. Strydom, but their voices couldn't be ignored. Instead of retreating, they broke into song. Wathend Abafazi, Wathend Imbokoto. I apologize to the 80% of people that speak Zulu. I practice and practice. You strike a woman, you strike a rock. That was not just a protest chant. That was a promise. A reminder that South African women is immovable forces of courage and of change. And today, almost 70 years later, we are still rocks that stand, and we are still voices that will not be silenced. Allow me, please, a brief personal mama proud moment. My daughter Mireille is 16, and she had the absolute privilege to go to the Constitutional Court last week to job shadow. Wow. That was an experience. Looking like she stepped into a version of Suit, just not the wardrobe, more paperwork. It was so amazing to see her literally walking on clouds, coming back with stars in her eye and in awe. Before she left, she said, "Mama, what if someone asked me legal advice?" And I thought, my child, please stay as confident like that as forever. She took it very serious. She studied. She signed the NDA, didn't discuss anything with us. And I thought, looking back at that night when she came home full of excitement about the law, I was reminded then why today matters. Because young women like my daughter Mireille are watching us. They're listening. And they are imagining their futures in spaces that weren't always open to women. Today's panelists are exactly the role models who make it possible for our future leaders. Our session today is about honesty and authenticity. It's about digging into the real stories not just the fancy LinkedIn pages and the courtroom victories. Today we'll talk about women in leadership in general, not just the shiny titles, but also the demanding road that it takes to get there. We will also share personal experiences and lessons. Yes, the great triumphs, but also the humbling moments that we learn from. We will discuss the positive changes that we have seen in the legal profession. Yes, whilst we're not yet where we need to be 100%, we are not where we used to be. And I think this is a testimony of that change. Very, very heartwarming. Practical guidance for junior counsel and women lawyers is when we get into the meat and potatoes. Because inspiration without action is just a good story. We want action, we want practical guidance. So we're aiming for an authentic conversation. Think about a fireside chat with these legal legends tonight. What a privilege. So here's how this afternoon will run. We're a little bit behind schedule, and I'll share with you in my coaching practice the other day. I was addressing people on time management, and I was late because I was in a roadblock. So I'm very aware of time now and being on time, and also that we've run a bit over. So we want to have 45 minutes where we will have an interactive Q&A with the panelists, and then, ladies and gentlemen, we also want to take your questions and add your voices to the conversation. After that, we will have informal networking opportunity. So in closing thought, what an absolute privilege it is for me, and I'm in awe to introduce our panelists to you tonight. Pioneers, mentors, role models, shaping our legal landscape for the generations to come. Thank you. Okay, I want to first introduce you to Judge Faiza Guthrie Setiloana. She's a judge at the Supreme Court of Appeal. Right next to her is Judge Nobathle Mangu-Lockwood. She's a judge of the High Court on the Cape Bench. Welcome to Josie. Zanele Mkhadi, she is the Chief Legal Counsel at Netbank. She's right there next to the judge. And then next to me is Nazreen Rajab Butleder, SC. She's an advocate of the High Court of South Africa, Chambers 56. And last but not least, there in the corner is Anna Isaac, the Group Executive, Chief Legal, Risk and Compliance Officer at Vodacom. Welcome, ladies, and thank you for joining us. So, just on a side note, I met Anna before we started, and I looked at the view, and I said, oh, isn't this stunning? Isn't this beautiful? And she said, it's nice, but I lived in Abu Dhabi. this is view light. She's used to the best views. So I want to kick off our 4 topics. So first we're going to discuss women in leadership in general. Okay, and I want to ask Judge Faiza to please just set the scene for us. She had such an extraordinary career, marked with justice, transformation, and the advancement of constitutional values. So I would love for her to kick us off and just to set the scene before I ask the panelists specific questions. Over to you, Judge.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's wonderful to see that things have changed at the side. Well, there's been some change. I can't say there's been complete change and complete transformation. I'm going to be very honest. We're not where we should be, but I'm sitting next to a leader of a group. She was very brave to move out of the bar, and leave the bar and join a different bar that was just newly established. And now she's moved out of that establishment and has now formed her own group. So we do have young women leaders at the bar. Over the past 8 to 10 years, we've had women leading the General Council of the Bar, more women sitting on the General Council of the Bar. We've had more women leading the bar councils and serving time on the other women that are not the heads of the bar, but certainly members of the council. So I think there's been progress in terms of leadership, but leadership is one thing, but one has to also ensure that the membership of the bar are able to sustain themselves. And for me, that's a very, very important theme. And, I was a young leader at the bar. From the time I think I was in second year, I was on the bar council. I then, moved on to the general council of the bar. And our fight was about transforming the bar. And I'm now on the bench for 16 years. And that fight continues, So as a result, you had the exit of Obasa, members joined in there, and you had a whole lot of other groups being set up, which I think is very good for diversity, for spreading leadership across the bar, etc. But so it's really encouraging. It's really encouraging when I see my pupil, Kameshni Pillay, who then becomes the leader of the Johannesburg Bar and then serves on the General Council of the Bar and is now a SC. When I see Nasreen, who I knew as a young clerk at the Constitutional Court, she was there a few years after me. It's wonderful to see that she's now an SC. So it's wonderful to see in the judiciary to see that we now have a woman Chief Justice. The head of the Supreme Court of Women, of Appeal is a woman. All the judge presidents, I think, and deputy judge presidents, save for one, are now women. And the numbers in the judiciary have changed. There are more women, fewer men. But I still have to step back to historically to where I was, and that is the bar. And the sidebar, because my career was quite interesting. I started off at the LRC, as a fellow in the days where you didn't have to do articles. And then I went across to America to study at Georgetown on a Fulbright, and then I came back and taught law for a bit in Cape Town, and then became one of the first clerks at the Constitutional Court to Judge Yvonne Mogoro, and then came to the bar after that. But there was always this thing that kind of bugged us, and that was briefing patterns at the bar. And what have the leadership? So you have now women leadership. What have they been able to achieve in order to transform the briefing patterns, and to ensure that the rank and file membership of the bar can actually sustain their practices and not have to leave to go someplace else? So for me, that's a very important thing, and it's just, one hopes that the bar is a very strange place. It can also be a very selfish place, because the moment you finish pupillage, you are in competition with your own mentor. I don't know, what are they called now, Nasreen?
Mentors.
Mentors. You are in competition with your own mentor, So it's very difficult, because you can't expect work to come from your mentor. It's got to come from somewhere else. So I don't know if I can go on with this.
Absolutely.
What do you do as a young member at the bar to ensure that you actually can survive at the bar? When I look around here, I see most of you are there now for a number of years. And it's encouraging when I saw and met some of you this evening, and I said, how's things at the bar? And you said, fantastic, we've got good practices, we're getting work, right? But just 2 months ago, I had 5 young advocates at a function honoring Yvonne Mogoro coming to me and saying, Judge, we're at the bar now, we're there for 5 and 6 years, and the work has dried up. What do we do? And I had to say, listen, my darlings, you don't have to be embarrassed. Go back, if you were an attorney before, go back to being an attorney, If you can find a job in the corporate world, go back and become legal counsel. Because it's you're going to kill yourself, The bar works if you have work. And that's my message. And as I look around tonight, I'm a bit disappointed, because I'm at Worksmans, which is a law firm, and I'm not seeing the lawyers here, I'm seeing the clients, but I'm not seeing the lawyers. And I wish they were here, because I need to say to them, listen, guys, you need to make a greater concerted effort to actually brief the young people, the young members of the bar, because without your assistance, they're not going to be able to sustain themselves beyond a few years. So I speak to Anne, and I speak to Zanele, and it's wonderful. This is a wonderful project. I mean, I think, which is directed at empowering young junior counsel at the bar, which I think is fantastic. But it mustn't be a program only in name. You've got to see action. You've got to ensure that you create the opportunities for young people at the bar, because you are the future leaders. And I go back to now being to leadership, because you are in fact the future leaders of the bar, of the sidebar. You are the future judges. And unless you have gained sufficient experience at the bar, it's very difficult to actually even, embark on a career as a judge, because your experience has to be all round. And so that's why it's so important not only to have public law. I mean, I was a public lawyer, right? Constitutional, administrative. Fortunately, I managed to, break into telecoms, which was at that time quite an in thing, some competition work. And when I came to Worksman's, that's where I gained my commercial experience. And that is what actually set me up in terms of having, thinking like a commercial lawyer for the bench, because it's so important to have that all-round experience. Now, so, and I think, did you ask me about mentorship as well? Yes, I mean, having a mentee is such an important thing. I think people are more open to actually mentoring young lawyers. In our days, the term didn't exist. We had people that mentored us. I can remember being mentored by George Bezos. I can remember being mentored by my own judge, Judge Mahoro. The opportunities that she gave me and the doors that job opened for me, my life would have been completely different if I did not serve that very first year in the Constitutional Court. It was almost a ticket into getting constitutional administrative administrative law work when you got to the bar. And it was so important at that time to have some visibility. And that's what I want to stress on. Visibility, you need to be visible in your groups. Don't shy away into your chambers, Go to your teas regularly. Go to lunches. You're not only going to get, don't even think about, okay, I'm going to speak to the senior counsel for them to bring me into matters. Become friends with the junior counsel in the group, because they're going to have work. Busy junior counsel will always have work that they'll pass on to you. That's how we all started at the bar. There'll always be work to pass on to you. They'll always introduce you to their attorneys. Senior counsel are sitting on their pedestals. They're not so interested, right? They've already made it. So you've got to find a way to actually make yourself visible. You've got to approach, the Nasri and Rajabs in your Butlanders in your chambers and say, listen, I'm really interested in this particular case, and I know you argued it, and I would, you've got a public law, you've got some kind of administrative law brief, and you need some assistance. Knock on the door of a colleague, say, listen, I've got this matter, can I just bounce it off you? When you're preparing your heads of argument, if you're in a junior brief with the senior counsel and you unsure about something, knock on a colleague's door and say, listen, can you help? The more you talk to people, the more people see that you are busy, the more you will actually get the work. So even if you do not have the work for a week or two, pretend that you are busy. Walk around with absolute confidence. That is the trick. Confidence, if you are confident, that is 80% of your, it's gone, really. People will look at you and they'll automatically think, this is a busy lawyer. This is the sort of person I want to have as a junior counsel. But do not shy away. By shying away into your chambers, nobody's going to see you. The bar, you have to be confident. The number one thing is you have to be confident. When you walk into court, walk in confidently. When you address the judge confidently. Your confidence will impress on their judge before your preparation in a matter. Okay? But that doesn't mean you don't go there well prepared. You have to be super prepared. Do not think that judges are docile and haven't read their papers. Okay? You've all been in the High Court. I'm sure people have appeared before me. And you have to know your papers in and out, backwards and forwards. You have to know, you have to be so well prepared. You have to be absolutely diligent. You have to be even-tempered when you're at the bar and when you're in court. It's very important. Because the judges are going to ask you all kinds of questions. Be super prepared, because it's that you would have thought about an issue in a matter and you would have not prepared on that particular issue and not done research. And that is the question that's going to be asked. Okay? But how do you get your work? You actually get your work by your performance in court. Because in court is the place where you have all of the attorneys present, right? In motion court, on any day, there are a number of attorneys. If you're in a trial, it's the attorney on the other side that's going to see you. So at the end of the day, you are actually a performer and you need to perform, right? And it's only by performing and showing off your ability that people are going to have confidence in you and your ability to actually argue cases that are very important, right? So really, I say confidence, hard work. Be fully prepared. Be even-tempered. Be courteous. Be polite to the judge, right? Answer a question fully. When a judge asks you a question, answer it fully. Don't ignore it and move on to something else because you don't have the answer. If you don't have the answer, say, may I come back to that after tea? Or if there's time, the judge will say, fine. But come back to it. Remember, judges talk in the tea room. Judges love scandal. Judges love gossip. Okay. And what's our subject matter? It's very limited. It's who appeared before us that day. Right? So remember, you're performing for that judge. And what is it that a judge wants? A judge wants good counsel before them. Right? A judge wants counsel that's super prepared. A judge wants counsel who will make the case easy for them. Because we have so many cases. And we have simple cases, but you have such complex cases. And I promise you, before I even start reading, I start with my reading of a record. I go straight to the heads of argument, and I look to see who counsel are. And I look at the quality of heads of argument, and I say, okay, I can relax, because the counsel knows what he's saying. Both counsel are going to help me through this matter. So no matter how complex the matter is, you know that counsel is going to help you with that matter so you can give a proper judgment. But at the end of the day, it goes back to you and what work you're going to receive from the attorneys. Because judges will talk to other attorneys as well, right? So it's going to say, oh, judge, you know Sanako from the bar? She was before me today. I'm going to say it at a dinner party, Sanako was before me today, and she performed so well. She's so competent. And I use Sanako as an example because Sanako is my mentee. When I acted at the Constitutional Court, she was a young clerk for Judge Zondo, and since then she's become my mentee. And she phones me regularly, and we chat about what struggles she's having at the bar, right? So mentorship is so important. Mentorship will expose you to networks that you wouldn't otherwise have access to. And I'm sure the bar has a mentorship program outside of your pupillage mentor, right? I don't know, Nasreen, if the groups have.
AFT does.
Yeah, AFT does, and I'm sure the groups, I know the Bridge group has, where they, you can, senior counsel and junior counsel are happy to take on a junior, because they're going to help you do that networking. They're going to introduce you to the people you need to be introduced to. So I want to get back to, it's fantastic that we now have women leaders at the bar, and one hopes that they are creating opportunities for the young women and the young men out there. I'm not leaving you out. I'm not leaving the young men out. And I see a few sitting back there. But mentorship, if you can find yourself a mentor, if you can find yourself a mentor, it's going to help you. It's going to help you navigate the attitude, the sexist or the racist attitudes that you, from time to time you may encounter. This is the reality of the bar. This is the reality of the sidebar. You work with all different, it's a diverse group of people. You will encounter these difficulties, and you will encounter those challenges. But if you have a mentee, that mentee is going to help you. That mentee is going to also, every time you have difficulty with a matter, every time you have a question and you're scratching your head, don't sit in your chambers and continue to scratch your head, because you're never going to get the answer. Go and find somebody in the group that can help you with that, help you through that, and then you'll progress in your heads of argument or whatever it is. When you go to present heads to your senior counsel, if you're unsure about something, ask a young lawyer with more experience than you to basically just vet your heads of argument, So when the senior looks at it, it's a near perfect set of heads of argument. And then that's going to bring in, he's going to invite you back. Or he's going to suggest that somebody else brings you in as a junior. So just, you just need to do constantly work at it. You've got to constantly work at it. The bar used to be an old boys club. I used to say that, women always struggled because we didn't play golf every Wednesday and every Sunday morning, But now more and more women are playing golf and they're loving the game. Our networking is somewhat limited compared to the kind of old boys clubs, and in as much as the bar and the sidebar have broken out of that, it hasn't gone far enough. So a lot more has to be done, and I really wish today that there were more senior attorneys in the room, so they can hear what I'm saying. And it's not about just having a program in name, but it's actually creating those opportunities, or it's actually mentoring, finding a way of mentoring. I mean, when I was here at Worksman's, I was an in-house counsel. I was never an attorney. I was an in-house counsel, yeah. But before I left to join the judiciary, we created a program in terms of which 2 or 3 juniors would spend 6 months to a year, or even up to 2 years, at Worksman's, for them to be exposed to what happens in an attorney's firm. And how does an attorney think compared to an advocate? What does the attorney want from an advocate? Right? Forget about what a judge wants now. Your first struggle is with what does an attorney want? And if you understand what an attorney wants, then you know how to basically navigate yourself in any brief that you receive from an attorney, right? So the idea was basically for young juniors to spend time here. It was difficult. We had to get the bar to relax the rule that advocates want. I mean, I had to leave the bar when I joined Worksman's because the rules wouldn't allow me to be here. But I did it. I took the chance. I took the risk. That's the other thing you need to take. And that is, I find, a difference between young male juniors and women juniors. You ask a male junior, they will, if they don't even know the answer, they'll take a chance. And they will, they say shoot from the hip, right? Is that the right term?
Yeah.
They will shoot from the hip. And most times they get the answer right. It's like doing multiple choice. Men do better, women do better at essay writing, men do better at multiple choice. Why? Because they are risk takers. And there's a certain amount of risk that you have to take as a lawyer, whether you're an attorney or whether you're an advocate. It's a courage, it's a bravado, right? And very often it's that will persuade the judge. It's that will impress the judge. Because what is your role at the end of the day? Your role at the end of the day is to persuade the judge, regardless of whether your case is right or wrong. It is about persuading the judge. Even if the judge gets it wrong, it's going on appeal. But you don't care if the judge gets it wrong. It's you persuading the judge to find in favor of your client's position, right? So there's a certain amount of risk-taking that you have. And as women, we need to just become braver. And we need to up those confidence levels. So I'm saying, I remember the first time I appeared, I was, 2.5 years at the bar or something when I appeared in the Constitutional Court, and I was finished. I was terrified. And going into Judge Chaskelson's chamber, he said to me, Faiza, because he knew me from when I was at the LRC, because he used to be the head of the LRC. He said, Faiza, you know what no, I'm saying to him, Justice, I'm so terrified. No, I knew him from before. This was Nashreen's boss as well. I knew him from when I worked at the Constitutional and from the LRC. And I'm kind of like being honest. I'm so nervous. I've been with seniors in this court, but I've never appeared myself. And he said to me, and it completely shocked me, because he said, Faiza, the difference between you and me is you are confident, and I have no confidence. Wow. He said, when I appeared in court, he said, I had absolutely no confidence. I couldn't believe it. This is Arthur Chaskelson, the great, legendary Arthur Chaskelson. But I promise you, that gave me the courage to go into that court and argue my case and succeed in it, right? And that matter I was in with the senior, and 2 days before the matter, it was Altus Hubert, because I think he was terrified to appear in the Constitutional Law, because he was not a constitutional lawyer. And he then phoned me and said, Faiza, I can't make it because something else has come up and and whatever. So you can imagine I was terrified from the moment he said that to me. But I mean, you are thrown into the deep end. You are always thrown into the deep end. I remember being in a matter with George Bezos, and the morning of the matter he said to me, you're going to do this yourself. He was in court, and he sat in court, and he made me argue the matter. So they also put you to tests. Men can put you to tests. The first time I appeared in the court was still civil. They were very civilized. In the SCA, they were downright wild because they never had women appearing in that court. They never had women appearing in that court. And I remember I led Jackie Cassette. We actually did it as a pro bono matter. Edwin Cameron called us and said, will we come in as pro bono counsel? And we said yes. And we only had about 7 days to prepare. And I brought Jackie Cassette in. And you had Streicher, and you had Judge Streicher, and Harams, and God, it was. The moment I started, I could not argue. They kept asking me questions. It was like they were having fun with me because I was a woman, and so few women appear in that court. But at the end of the day, I stood my ground, and afterward, I remember afterwards on the plane coming back, I remember Judge Njafsa turned to me and he said, "You know, today we discussed you in the tea room. You see, when I say judges talk," and he said, "Well done. You were able to answer those questions. You were so brave." You know, so just you just have to find that confidence, and you are confident. You have now been in practice for a while, but you know, so you've got it. You've actually got it. You wouldn't be at the bar. You wouldn't be here at the sidebar if you didn't have the courage to be lawyers and to do what is required of you. So again, I say I'd love to see more of you in my court. I'm very disappointed that there's so few women that appear in the SCA. You know, I said it I was very flippant the other day when they asked me, our junior counsel, and I said, there are no women that appear in my court, you know, and literally for the last 3 weeks, there have been no women. Fortunately, yesterday, there was a junior counsel, and what was lovely was Paul Carstensen, who was Silk, and he kept saying, you know, my junior referred me to this case, and this is what this case, and you know, we had a debate, and she's actually right because this case is the case that is on point. So it was really lovely to see that he was propping his junior up, right? And it was a Miss Long. And I just remember the name was M. Long. I don't know what her first name was. M. Long, a Miss Long from the bar. But, you know, we've had, Dasreen appears in the Constitutional Court in the SCA. You've got an Adila, you've got Kate Hoffmeyer, you've got, you know, a number of women. And it's lovely because you get, I think in intellectual property law, in patents law, there are 1 or 2 young women that are starting to pick up work, and they're actually arguing matters in the SCA. But it's few and far between. And more women have to appear. There have got to be more juniors in that court. So again, if the attorneys were here, I'd be saying, and I can say it to the clients here, you know, Nedbank and Vodacom, that you know, start insisting that your attorneys bring in young junior counsel, and you've got to diversify your practices as well. You've got to diversify your practices. So you may be interested in an area that you know that you don't practice in because you haven't been getting work in there. Go and do a diploma. Go and do something. You know, WITS is offering all kinds of courses, and just show off in the tea room. When you go to tea, just say, you know what, I passed my exam in whatever, tax law, or I just, you know, I got my diploma, or I've got this big brief. You know, it's when I say you got to play the part to get the work. That is what I mean. I know men that appeared before me that got so much more work than me because they were part of the circle, the network, the right circles, right? But it doesn't mean that I or my fellow young women counsel were not good counsel, and that we were not as skilled or equipped in terms of our knowledge of the law to the same extent as our male colleagues were. It wasn't that. It was about it. Law is about and practice, and having a good practice is all about networking. So I want to stress on that and just go and play the role and just show off if you have to show off. Don't be afraid that people are going to say, "Oh, she's so ambitious," you know. Men talk about their work all the time, right? So you talk about it. You flaunt it. What is the word? You flaunt it. You flaunt it, and you will that'll start attracting work.
Wow. Thank you, Judge. Guys, what pearls of wisdom, huh? We promised you, and I just want to go back to my notes, authenticity, real conversations. the messy, demanding road it takes, not just the triumphs, but the tough times, the tough conversations. We're not there yet, but we're en route. And it's so nice to watch you and see how your face is lit up when Judge talks to you. So if you are a bit panicky now because you think, we're not going to get through everything, you're right.
Oh my God.
But these conversations, this is actually a good sign because it means the conversations we've started today will carry on WhatsApp group. No, you were so excellent. No, the audience would have lynched me if I stopped you. No, you
said everything.
The conversations that we will have outside of this room that continue, please continue that. Also with the people that's not in the room. Be the voice, spread it further, pay it forward. And it's lovely, your energy, to see it reciprocated. Wow, magic. Thank you very much. My next question is now to Judge Nobasle. I want to ask you, what have you noticed when people... when a young lawyer appears in front of you and they have that magic quality and they have that strategy to help them succeed, what have you noticed? What is that magic thing that they have? Just to add on from what Judge Fraser started with the confidence and promoting yourself.
Yeah. I don't know if I can pin it to one thing. I think it's a combination. The preparation is absolutely important. By the time you come to court, your papers are before me. I've read everything I know everything that there is to know about you, because from the way you draft to the quality of your papers. So I would say preparation is number one. But showing up, like she was saying, my sister was saying, the way you show up matters a whole lot when you're there. The way you address the court, she said, be respectful to your colleague as well. It matters to me to watch you be respectful to your colleague, even your junior if you have a junior, or your senior, or your attorney. You know how people like to throw people under the bus? Yeah. The papers are not in order. Oh, it's my attorney. It's just so... I've been an article clerk. I did my articles as an attorney. I was an attorney. I was at the bar as a junior, and I know how it goes. So that culture. Anyway, you asked for the standout things, preparation, the way you show up, also the way you dress. Some people come to our chambers, and you're like, where were you going when you woke up? When you left home? Maybe you don't have that problem here in Joburg, because I know how Joburgers show up. Cape Town, maybe. That's where they need to ask me this question, Cape Town. There was something else I've forgotten. Oh yes. Let's call it integrity. And that covers a whole lot of things. If your heads are due by a certain date, your attorney expects the heads by a certain date, not just the judge. So if you can't make that deadline, everyone has a problem. Everyone understands a problem. Be that person who knows how to pick up the phone and say, look, I won't meet the deadline. I've had this problem. Better be a serious problem. Obviously, court rules are court rules, okay? You can't just say, I had this problem, condonation, etc. Don't be that untidy, tardy person. I used to have an attorney, every single brief, I'm not exaggerating, had to start with a condonation. Oh my word, this is when I was at the bar. Don't be that person, because now when we hear your name, oh, Miss Condonation, we called her Queen of Condonation QC.
Love that.
I'm not even a joke. Don't be that person. All of those things matter, and they come together when you're standing there. All of those things are spoken on your behalf. And whatever you tell me, I can say, yeah, right. Because I've read your papers. Some people stand there and they tell you, the papers say X. I've read the papers, they say Y. Don't be that person. So all of those things must come together.
Thanks, Judge. I think the laughter in the audience. I've said it all. Nasreen, my next question is to you. In driving transformation, how important is the role of your male counterparts and allies in inclusive leadership? And how can they help you sustain and accelerate the progress?
That is a great question because, well, for many reasons, but one of them is this. Last year, I started a group of advocates with 2 other women, and we named Chambers 56 after the 1956 Women's March, which we commemorate today. But we took this intentional decision that our group would be majority women and would be woman-led. But we also took a decision that we wanted men in the group. And part of that reason is because actually we need male allies. We live in this world together with men. We navigate our professions with men. We need to work with them, but we do need to take them on the journey with us. So in our group, we have a few men. One of them is here, Sanan. But we are very clear that they are allies. I mean, we recently recruited a new member, and I said to him in his interview, how do you feel about being led by women? And his answer was, well, I'm a feminist, so it's easy. So he got in very quickly. But you know, when we were talking before this session, one of the things I've learned just in the process of being senior, junior, and taking silk is that men often haven't had an opportunity to be led by women in a professional space. Leave aside their home spaces where it's even worse. But I think one of our additional roles as senior women is to teach men how to be led by women, how to take instruction from a woman, how to accept that intellectually a woman may be more advanced than you, that she may be more experienced than you. And what I find is that although I initially tried to only work with women for the reasons that you understand, increasingly I'm trying to include a man in our team, because actually some men work very well with women and they're great. Others really battle. They can be a first or second year junior, and Shaista is smiling at the back because she's been in teams like this with me. But there'll be a first or second year man who thinks that they know better than all of the other women in the team who are far more experienced and senior. So that's also a role. And I say it's an additional role because as women we carry so many burdens, right? But this is something that I see as part of an important part of our role professionally. So I think it's important to have men that we take on this journey with us, that they learn how to function in professional space and be led by women. I have 2 sons, and I see that as another additional role, which is how we raise men to operate in a world where women are their genuine equals, is important. And so we have to be conscious of that too. But I think it's a very important thing, and I'm really sad that there aren't actually more men here today. And it reinforces this idea that women's issues are women's issues. They're not. They're all of our issues. It's a human issue, right? So yeah, I think it's a very important question you raised.
Thanks, Nasreen. Very well said. And a shout out to all the feminists in the room, the male feminists. Thank you. My next question is to Zanele, and it's going to be twofold. We spoke about confidence and the importance of confidence. How can young lawyers build confidence in boardrooms and in courtrooms? How can they get that? Where can they get that from? And then secondly, how can they network without it being made feel forced? Thank you. Over to you, Zanele.
Why do I get a tough question?
Because you're the networking and mentoring expert.
So, I mean, to speak about confidence, I probably am the last person to speak about confidence, to be honest with you. However, I think it was Judge Desiree talk about the fact that you have to fake it until you make it. And I think that is the thing to do. Like, it doesn't matter how scared you are. It doesn't matter how not confident you are. You need to make yourself look confident. You need to be in a space where you are shaking in your boots, but where afterwards people say, you look so confident. And you're like, me? But you definitely, because I think confidence is not something that we all have. However, there are certain levers that you have to pull. You have to pull in order to be confident. And for me, those levers are preparation. Those levers are ensuring that you know what you're talking about all the time. And it doesn't matter how much you're shaking. If you know what you're talking about, you will look like you're confident. And that for me is the one thing that I can say. And also, I came into law. I qualified in 93, 92? And in that time, there was no me seeing other women as mentors or people that I could look up to. And luckily, in that space, you're still young. When you're young, you have the natural confidence of being young, of coming out of law school and thinking that you know everything. So that helped. However, over time, that confidence gets chipped down by everything that you face, especially in the corporate. It gets chipped down all the time. And that contact that you have with other women and with other black people that you have to seek out to get that confident, people who speak your language, people that you relate to, those are the people that you go to build confidence. Actually, this reminds me the time, I don't know if you guys have that experience, that when I was starting out, especially in banking, when I started out in Nedbank, I was one of very few, if not just one, of lawyers in a transaction, negotiating a transaction. And I don't know whether this is something that we sort of assimilate as you grow up, or it just because other people were doing it. But whenever you would see another black person, you avoided them as much as possible. It was like you do not want to be seen to be a group of black people. And now looking back, I think I missed out a lot of opportunities to interact with these people that I was dealing with the same issues with. And that is, for me, another thing that I tell young people. When you see another black person, even if they are the only other black person in the room, do not avoid them. That's the person that will give you the confidence to have something to speak with. That's the person that will form a group that other people will want to join. And that maybe takes me to the next point on networking. Again, this is not a subject that I am expert at. However, a few years ago, I took the decision that I am going to stop avoiding networking. That I know that I'm an introvert. However, I need to build the networking. I need to go out and build that muscle. Because what I realize is that same as with exercise, confidence, networking is a muscle that you build over time. Again, it doesn't come naturally to all of us, and if you don't have it naturally, you just have to build it. It's like if you don't have muscles naturally, you go to the gym constantly. So for me, it was that. It doesn't matter how much you're thinking, oh my God, and my team knows that that is the verbiage I have, like, oh my God, I have to go to this function. However, at some point I decided I may be tired and do not want to interact, and because I'm an introvert, I need some safe space or quiet space in order for me to recharge. But I'm going to go to that event. I went to our marketing people and told them, if you have any event and you don't have a speaker, come to me. Wow. And they would come to me and then ask me to speak, and I would be like getting to a place like, what the hell am I doing? And if I have an opportunity and there's someone there that I know, I would tell them, please, since you're here, just listen to me, listen to how I speak. If there's any mistake I make, please tell me what I can do better. But again, it's just like you just have to throw yourself in there. It's like swimming, you just throw yourself in there, and over time, obviously, you have to accept the fact that you're not always going to be good, and that's just life. Accept the fact that at some points, people are going to avoid looking at you because you messed up so badly. However, you will get there over time. Believe me, you will get there. You will get to the point where people will say, oh, but you look like you're natural, like you, if only you knew. But I think you just have to do it. It's like I said, it doesn't come naturally to all of us. And actually, to the people that look like it comes naturally to them, it's because they've been doing it over time. Yes. They've learned to build that confidence and to build that muscle. So there's very few, if anyone ever, who gets up in front of an audience and can naturally do everything they want to do. Everyone has done it so many times that they've been good at it.
Wow. Thank you, Zanele, for that masterclass in networking and slaying every imposter syndrome in this room. Okay, so you just do it. And if you don't know the Mel Robbins, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, just follow that and go. Yeah, don't overthink. That's your biggest enemy. If I can add, the biggest nugget that I've learned in networking in my life is when you network with a man, you talk about his achievements. If you network with a woman, you talk about her interests. And I want you to go and try that because it works. Brilliant. Anna, you've been a breath of fresh air at Vodacom and you are just like a force to be reckoned with. Could you share a defining moment in your career where you had to make a really difficult leadership decision?
Thank you. So I think firstly, there's been so many from a difficult leadership perspective. But before I get to that, I just want to say the one male in the room, clearly Nazreen insisted you be here, and that's why you're here.
There's other ones. No, they're more at the back.
No, but I'm talking about this one. There's more at the back, but that one in particular. So I think, all of us have challenges in terms of our career. And when you're younger, it's more difficult. I think as you get older, it's easier to maneuver those challenging moments that you may have. From a leadership perspective, we are always going to be faced with that. And one of the things that you've got to ask yourself, which I did when I came to my moments, is what matters? What matters to you as a person? If you look within yourself, what do you see? And I think integrity, first and foremost, is key. From an integrity perspective, we are in the field of law. So I've been in practice at Hofmeyrs for 5 years, 25 years at Nedbank, and now at Vodacom. So in our role, when we face those defining moments as such, we've got to say, do people matter? Does it matter from what my boss is going to think? If he, for example, wants you to do the right or wrong thing, it doesn't matter. But you've got to ask yourself, what is it worth to you? Now, I've had quite a few in my career. And, one of them was in a major investigation, for example, where I had to make a choice. And it was somebody that I was very close to. And I had to decide how to handle this in terms of going forward. Do I be transparent? Do I not be transparent? Because the person is a friend. And I think ultimately for me, it was about integrity. It was about ensuring that I do the right thing. Going through my career as well, from the point of defining moments, I was the first female general counsel in one of the top 4 banks in South Africa. So when you're faced with that kind of challenge, and it is a challenge because in every single meeting that I used to go through coming up the ladder, I used to be the only female in the room, literally. I sat for 8 years on a risk exco where I was the only female. So from those defining moments, what you've got to do, and if I can give you some advice from that perspective as females, you've got to say when you come to those crossroads, am I going to do what's right for me or what's right for the organization if it's a choice? If it's both, it's fine. But if it's a choice, you've got to look within yourself and ask yourself that. But maybe before I go off that, just from a female perspective, and just 2 things that I did early on in my career, which may help you. So the one thing I did very deliberately is that when I went into the room with 16 males, which was generally what happened, and they brought in the tea, I would never get up to pass out the tea. Okay, I would sit there and wait for one of the males to do it. And that was a rule I just did not do. Secondly, how often have you seen in a room, when you are in a meeting, they would look to the female to say, would you take notes? That was not going to be me either. And it is difficult. It is difficult when you're the junior person, because we all, as females, had imposter syndrome at some point, right? When you're going up the ranks, when you're older, it's a lot easier. But when you're going up the ranks, you do suffer from imposter syndrome. So you feel that you've got to fill the silence when there's no one's putting up their hand to do the work, that you've got to fill that silence. So let's learn to keep quiet during those silences. And I think that's really important. So I think I'm just going to stop there, because I know we're running out of time, so that I can hand back to you.
Thank you, Anna, for sharing that. Another phenomenal practical advice. I want to now move to you to join the conversation and to ask a question that you have. So just please raise your hand, not all at once. Lady in the back, who do you have a question to? Please stand up.
Good evening, justices, evening, colleagues. My name is Sichawa Zazama Mwepa. I'm a junior counsel at the Johannesburg Bar. I'm practicing at Dumanokwe. A lot of my colleagues know I've got a big voice, but today it's gone. It's just, I'm in awe of the panel today. I truly appreciate it, and I appreciate the words of encouragement. So I have a job shadowing program as well. I'm part of a BLA organization. We do the winter and summer vacation program. I've got over 600 students that I have to find job shadowing places, mentors for. And personally, I have over 10 mentees myself, job shadowing me. So I understand the need to job shadow a lot of students and LLB graduates. One of the difficulties I find in navigating the space at the bar is that it's not necessarily the men that close the doors behind us, it's actually the females. And when we raise and go towards females, leaders, I don't want to say older, but senior, we are shocked at how harshly they treat us. I always think it's because maybe they've had a more difficult journey, so maybe it's that inbred harshness, but I find it very quite alarming to find that it's not men who are closing the doors. Secondly, I've been coming to these functions I think it started at ENS, 2 years ago, and I have a bit of a gripe with these programs. Sorry, I've got a lot to say. And one of the things that I find that we come diligently to these programs, some of us are mothers, we have families, so we miss out on time of family, networking, filling out our names, putting so much time into these events. However, the briefs don't come, unfortunately. I'm trying to find out why. I'm trying to find out why we spend time, you know us. I'm sure I've spoken to many on the panel here speaking about the fact that we come to these programs and we're not briefed. We go beyond our time. We take away time from our practices to come here. And that's the third thing. There's one more thing I want to say. I've got the stats from the Legal Practice Council, and these stats are very alarming. I was actually sharing it with a family member of mine because she has told me I must leave the bar, and I'm fighting diligently not to leave. I'm a mother to 2 children. So this is the stats that was given to us from the Legal Practice Council and the LLC. There were 406 junior counsel left the bar in the past 5 years. 66%, which is 272, were black, which 108 were women. And at a total of 85%, 104 juniors left the bar last year. And one of the things that was identified was the lack of briefing by large majority white firms, and there's a very high attrition rate at the JSA. And it says here lack of training, but I don't believe that. I believe most of us do have the training. I do believe most of us have higher educations, higher diplomas. If anybody had to raise their hands, I'm sure most of us have our masters. studying towards our masters, have postgraduates, competition law, mining, engineering, construction, you name it, we have them. And still we are not briefed. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
I don't know what's the question.
We are having authentic and honest conversations, and we embrace it. We have to embrace it. And thank you for sharing that and being brave to stand up in front of such a panel and to quote the stats. Okay. So, can I ask you, ladies, if anyone wants to give a teensy small bit of hope? I think we have spoken about some practicalities. And I hear you when you say it's not landing. You are not seeing it yet.
So, Annalene, maybe I'm best placed to try and tackle that. I can't disagree with a single thing you've said. The thing that makes me very sad is that I could have said that 20 years ago when I started the bar, and it has not changed. And Judge Faiza will back me up on that, right?
Absolutely.
So I used to sit on the steering committee of this this organization, JILB, right? And these are discussions that we've had over time, and that's exactly what I said at my last meeting, which is we can't keep having the same conversation again and again and again. How are we going to change it? So some practical things that we've tried to do in our group, and it's small ways, right? I mean, I was one of the people that left the Johannesburg Bar to start Pabasa 6-7 years ago. I've recently left Pabasa. But the point is we tried to do things differently to show that that big firms need to have confidence in black juniors. And it sounds like such a simple thing, but it's an enormous thing. And to try and tackle that, what we do in our group is I say, we meet with big firms, and I say to them, I understand you have a client at the end of the day, and your client is paying money towards this, and they want a positive outcome to their litigation or advice or whatever they're seeking. I also understand that we're suffering from a series of prejudices here that are stopping you from briefing my black juniors. So let's try and work out how do we find a common ground. One of the things we do is I say to you that if you brief my juniors in our group, you will know that the senior people in our group are there behind them, that their doors are open, that all of our juniors know that they can come without fear to ask questions of every other member of the group, and to know that you're getting support. So you're not just briefing one person and saying, well, I've never heard of Nelly Siwe. I don't know her. I don't want to put my trust in her. Because now what you're doing is you're briefing Nelly Siwe, but you're also getting Lizelle and Shaista and Nasreen and whoever else is there. So that's one way in which we're trying to counter some of those prejudices and obstacles to young people getting work. But there are many, many more ways that firms should be spearheading. For example, the idea of bringing people in-house for a period of time to expose them. Because, the bar is, I keep saying it, it's starting your own business. From day one, you're running your own business. And you have every obstacle stacked against you in doing that. So from day one, you're paying chambers fees unless you're in a very rich group that can subsidize your fees. You're paying bar fees. You need subscriptions to law reports. Otherwise, how can you be a good advocate without knowing what the law is? Those things are prohibitive. So you really are in one of the most difficult professions that I can think of to start, right? And once you know that, we then have to think about, okay, how do we get around it? And so I think the networking is important, but it's not going to achieve the briefs. We've seen it doesn't change the briefing pattern. So I think big firms, we really have to try bring them on board to give confidence to their clients and to say, actually, this is not us begging. This is your responsibility. This is our combined responsibility to this profession and to South Africa, quite frankly. So we're trying to do that in different ways. I think bars need to maybe try to do things more innovatively, but they're all trying. BLA is trying, Nadel's trying, AFTR's trying. But I agree with you, we're not doing enough. And too many, I get a call from at least one, mainly woman, every few weeks saying, I have to leave the bar. So those stats are correct. And it can't be, as seniors, we often feel responsible. We've got to try and spread the work. It's not possible. So in our group, what I've noticed, which has happened just organically, is that juniors are helping juniors. That I have like a third or fourth year junior who's passing work on to a second or third year junior. That if someone has too much work, they get their colleague to devil for them. And in that same spirit, they're introducing people to the attorney. So it's not just work in the background. So I think it's things like that. We do have to help each other through that process. You can't just look to seniors to be the solution, because that's not going to work. Sorry, it's a huge question, but it's a very important question.
Thank you, Nasreen, for that. I'm handing over to Anna now. She just wants to add.
Yeah, so I think I agree with you, absolutely. But I don't think it helps you, in all fairness, in terms of what you're saying. I've been a corporate lawyer for many years. And I am going to just now put Zanele on the spot here as well. One of the things is that we know that if you don't measure it, it doesn't get done. Okay, and that's what we learn very early in a corporate. So when I was at Nedbank, one of the things that we did was make sure that when we brief, that we would look to see if there is a black lawyer or a female, advocate or a female junior, etc. And we're going to hand over to ask Zanele just now what she thinks and how's that going. And it's something that you're absolutely correct about. It's not just the advocates or not just the lawyers or the law firms that can do this. It's also the clients. So it's also the GCs in South Africa that has a role to play to do this. And it's something that we need to measure. And I am glad you've brought it up, because I have come back and I am in a new role as well, and it's something that's on my list. But it's something to measure, and it's something for us to create awareness about in terms of corporate South Africa. Not just, you can't just say it's the problem of the law firms or the problem of the advocates, because it's not, it's everybody. And it's something that we need to do. So I don't know if you want to come in here.
Yeah. I just want to add from the perspective or point of view of JILB, because this was the whole reason behind this. And I don't think that when we started this, we thought we had all the solutions. In fact, after our first event, we had people coming to us and asking us, where are the briefs? When we did not even know where we were going. And it's taken us a long time to get where we need to get to. However, we getting worksmen involved in this initiative has brought us new opportunities and ideas. And between Prita and David, they have put a plan together on how they can get more people and more visibility on what is happening. Because maybe one or two people are getting briefs because of this. However, it's not enough. And as Anna says we as a client, we came into this with the law firms exactly for that reason. For the reason that it is important that us as clients make sure that the lawyers that we brief include everyone, include the people at the bar that have not been getting these briefs. Because realistically speaking, you guys are competing with senior people. You're competing with people who have been doing banking work for a long time. And it's very difficult for the people in the business, and I'm not patronizing you in this, it's very difficult to persuade people in the business that we need to brief you. However, as Anna says, she started this at Nedbank. What we are doing actively is that we are ensuring that not only from a briefing of attorneys' point of view do we ensure that we have black women, black lawyers also doing the banking work, but now we're extending it to the bar. We're extending it to say, I know definitely in the matters that I'm involved in, we're extending it to say we need to get a black junior. And I am doing it definitely for sure as an individual, but I'm just an individual in the big in this big industry when there are a lot more corporates. And I'm glad that Anna has come into this, because then we have her as well. And I think the more we grow, more corporates, more clients, and more law firms, we can actually bring this awareness. Because if I don't want to take too long, but coming into this, for me, when I saw the number of young women at the bar, I was shocked. Mm-hmm. I did not realize that there were so many young women at the bar. So for me, if nothing else, I know there's no result for you, but for me, it has brought on the awareness that I will ensure that I bring into the business, that there are so many people that we don't see. We see the usual faces whenever we brief. We see the same senior counsel, we see the same juniors, but we need to work on bringing in new people.
And Zanele, that's the problem, right? Yeah. Because attorneys and clients and this group keeps briefing the same people. And senior counsel are also responsible, because what I found is that often you will go to the same senior counsel who are experts in this particular area of banking or in intellectual property, and they will choose their juniors. So I want to suggest very strongly that what you do is that you insist on the juniors that are brought on. And you can say to a senior counsel, the state does it all the time. You're not choosing your junior. I'm going to give you the junior that you should use. I repeatedly send lists of black juniors to firms, to attorneys. Preeta knows I've done this, to clients, to say, because I'm tired of people saying we don't know any black juniors, right? They're there, as you say, you're seeing them. So, but when I send these lists, I follow up, and they don't get the work. So something has to shift, and I think if clients start insisting on seeing things change, it will have a massive effect. So I'm really grateful that you're thinking about it differently.
Can I just say something? I mean, we see it in court every day, and it breaks our hearts, because I know from when I was at the bar, and I know from my colleagues that are still at the bar, that they're incredibly bright and hardworking. And when they are brought into junior briefs, they are actually preparing those heads of argument. You know, the silk will just tweak it here and tweak it there, and make a few changes. But it's the junior that's actually doing the work. So why is that junior not progressing to be the person that actually argues that case? When that junior has the ability, it goes back sometimes to the client. The client insists on a particular silk because that's who they know is going to succeed for them. But it requires a whole mindset as well, change. It requires a mindset change. And Preeta, I applaud you David, for working together with the corporates in the banking area. But I think the next time you need to broaden this to other attorneys in your firm as well, and see how everybody can kind of come together. And I mean, that second junior rule is a rule that's there from when I was at the bar in like about fourth year or something. It was through us that it actually came about. We pushed for it. But that also hasn't helped, because you're a second junior, you're brought into one or two matters, and then, okay, the attorney's done their duty, the silk has done their duty. They've reported to the bar council that they've brought in juniors, and that's the end of it. In the meantime, that junior is, was being skilled, and then you suddenly left with... You pushed out of a matter almost, and then somebody else is brought in, because just cosmetically you need to have a second junior. So it requires a whole mindset thing and change. And it's so hard, because we went through these struggles. Like Nasreen says, it happened in my time, it happened before me in the time of Khomotso Morocco and, Majanku Gumbi. They were all there. And they're all holding high positions now, directors of boards and, in government. Government is also largely responsible. But I know when government briefs private attorneys and the big corporates, they insist that you bring in black juniors, right? But it's not just about having the black junior and the young woman there in name. It's really about empowering and making sure that they progress onto, and into that progresses into other work, and ultimately they are able to sustain a practice. So there's a duty on the profession, and it's an indictment on the profession, what you say. And like, I can't disagree with you, because it really breaks my heart. I mean, I was so disillusioned at 9 years at the bar that I actually left to come to Worksman's, as an in-house counsel. But I saw the same thing happening. And when I got onto the executive committee and this, for the 4 years or 5 years that I was here, we constantly tried to push for the change. But then the attorneys will come back and say, but my client wants, these juniors, and they're insisting. And it's like a vicious circle. What do you do about this problem? And
yeah, I think just for a disclaimer, Nedbank has been doing its part.
Oh, lovely. Okay. Well, that's
Thank you.
Nedbank.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
So before Nedbank takes away my brief, I do have to just say one comment. Nedbank has been assisting us
good.
juniors at the group that I am, and I'm part of their program. And I was introduced to attorneys who normally didn't brief me, and a relationship was started. So it is possible and it is successful. And most of us can say that if we were given the chance, if we were given the brief, you will be surprised at what we can do.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Lady there?
Evening, everyone. My name is Dina Mraila. I'm a senior legal counsel at Inclusion South Africa, known as Planet 42 in the automobile industry. I just want to pick up on what Anna said. So it's interesting that you mentioned that when you were in boardrooms, you were not the one that takes the notes, and you are not the one that reaches out to give tea. But I mean, there's a very thin line. And I want you to please help me with this. There's a very thin line with, when you want to go up, the corporate ladder. When you want to go up the corporate ladder, what you need to do is, good leaders sort of know how to follow, and you need to serve, and you need to know how to be an ice boy, for lack of a better word. Learn how to be an ice boy in order for you to get to the top. How do you draw... or where do you draw the line between being assertive, confident, and showing that you are good enough to sit at the table with everyone versus serving, right? And I think another struggle that's also adjacent to what advocates and, or counsels rather are going through is also the struggle of having been in-house for a long time and you want to pivot as well. How do you then also convince law firms that you are good enough, that you actually do the work? Because when you're on the other side of the table, they think that we take all our work and we give it to them, and we do nothing. We are just glorified lawyers. How do you, also find yourself or position yourself in a good light, and how do you present your value proposition to show that you are as good enough as an attorney as everyone else? Thank you.
So, I mean, that's a very good question, and a lot of the people sitting here who now report to Zanele used to report to me, and they know how hard I made them work. So it's not it's exactly like being in a law firm from an hour's perspective. So I get that. So I'm sure you work very hard as well. So I think firstly, it is very difficult in a corporate environment. So it's not easier than being in a law firm from an hour's perspective. Secondly, when you're in a corporate environment, you are the lawyer in the room, okay? So I'm not sure exactly what your circumstances are, but when you're the lawyer in the room with, it could be other corporate players or it could be other lawyers, etc., the reality is you've got to step up. Step up in terms of being prepared, which is exactly what the judge said. I honestly can tell you I had to work harder than any male. Those days of me getting up, I don't do it anymore at 3:30 in the morning, sending emails, because we had to prove ourselves. You had to work harder because of imposter syndrome, as I said. And I think somebody else mentioned males will take the risk. They will put their hands up when they know half the answer. We need to know it 120% before we put our hands up. And that is the truth of the matter, and that is a problem in itself. So I think if I could give you practical advice, you've got to know your stuff. So that's the first thing. You've got to know it. And if you need to seek guidance from others, seek guidance. You've got to walk the talk. So you can't come in and not be prepared. When you're in the room, yes, nothing, I mean, you don't have to be the ice boy or whatever it is that you mentioned. You don't. You've got to add value. You don't have to be invisible. Okay? You can be humble and be visible at the same time. So it is about adding value to the conversation, and you can only add value if you know the stuff. But if you corporate counsel, it's not good enough to know the law. You got to know the business, you got to speak the lingo, you got to be commercially savvy. And that you've got to understand. Unlike what the judge said from a judge and an advocate perspective, no one wants 10 pages. When I ask a question, I actually say to my lawyers, so I look after legal risk and compliance, and I have a staff of like 550 or 600 people. I say, when they give me 10 pages, I go, yes or no. That's all I want to know. I don't have time to read that. When you're sitting at a board, which I do, I sit at a board. When I'm sitting at the Vodacom board, they are not interested in what rule of the law said this. All they want to know is what is the substance and the crux of it, and commercially, how can you make it work? So if you can bring that to the table, people will take you seriously. And I think that's really, really important from a corporate counsel perspective. You also, as somebody said, be visible. Be visible and speak up, but don't waffle and don't say something if just for the sake of saying something when you're in a meeting, because time is money in a corporate. At the end of the day, people want answers. I will go to anyone, anywhere in the organization to get an answer. I'm not going in terms of protocol. So if you're the person who has the answer, I'm coming to you. So be visible, show what you know, come across as knowing that you understand what they are asking for. And I think that's important.
Thank you very much. Any other question? Lady here.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Esteemed judges, General Counsel, Advocate Nasrin Raja Bandlinda, and fellow ladies. Firstly, happy Women's Month to everybody. Secondly, I think Zaza mentioned Nedbank's program, and I would like to expand on that a little bit more. So I am the chairperson of the Dumanokwe Group's Transformation Committee for this year and last year. And I'm very proud to say that we have co-created a solution which is not a solution to all the problems we've heard, but I believe it's a step in the right direction with Nedbank. So Nedbank's Home Loans Recoveries Division has partnered with our group, and we have devised a program together which is measurable. Nedbank has committed to allocating 10% of all of their unopposed matters to our group. We have in turn selected 8 junior counsel, and Zaza is one of them. And there is a panel of 8 attorneys, and each junior counsel is allocated an attorney that they work with. That has resulted in them developing a relationship both with the client as well as with the attorneys' firms. Zaza has not said how well she's done on the program, so I'm going to take the opportunity to tell you. She's gotten all of her orders in all of her matters.
Oh. Wow.
She's also gotten from that same firm of attorneys a junior brief with a silk from another group. She's also gotten other work from them for their other clients. So it is a small step, but I think it's a small step in the right direction.
Absolutely.
So thank you to Nedbank for that. I think the good part about it is that we are able to very nicely measure it, and it is something which will hopefully result in sustainable transformation. And the good thing is also that there is no timeline for this program. So this program is going to continue, and the relationship is going to continue. So thank you to Nedbank for that.
Thank you very much.
That's amazing.
Thank you for giving a shout out. That was really nice.
Good evening, ladies and a few gents. My name is Tembi Shabalala. I come from TS Shabalala Attorneys. I'm an attorney and director. We're in Bedfordview. I'm also a presenter on a show called Mulao Ring, loosely translated, What Does the Law Say, on channel 157 Moja Love. I'm going to divert a little, and my question is for Zanele. Is it Zanele?
Yeah.
And Anna. I specialize in conveyancing and notary. I have applied for panels with the banks. Luckily, FNB is the only one that returned, gave us feedback by saying that they can't put us on the panel because in Bedfordview they have a lot of, other people. I am the only black female in Bedfordview.
And yeah, we just can't get on any panels. I get like 5 CVs from candidates who want to join us. I've got a big firm office. I've got space, but I can't employ people because, yeah, we're struggling with that part. Also with you, Anna, I mean, I've got a litigation department, commercial department, and we have volunteers. You know, I take the volunteers to come join us, but we can't employ them. And we're trying, we're applying with, you know, all the different banks, we're applying with corporate big companies, and yeah. So my question is, what is it that we're supposed to do? Especially as conveyancers and notaries.
Yeah, again, difficult question, but thanks for the question. I think the one thing about bank panels is that it is a lot of law firms for very little work. And we as in-house counsel have to balance having a big panel where we include everyone, but people don't get the work. So that is actually the work that we're doing together with Whaley at Nedbank to say we need to balance and ensure that we limit our panels so that if you get on a panel, you get the work. And maybe luckily for you, the panel for conveyancing work in the retail space, the panel process appointing the new panel is going to start soon. And we're going to be doing an RFP where we invite lawyers who are currently on our panel to apply to be on the panel, and those that apply, that give us their CVs to apply. And the process for appointment, I mean, we've done some panels in the past year. It's taken us a year and a half to just appoint about, 10 panels. And it takes a lot of time because we're trying to do this in a fair way, in a transparent way. However, we cannot accommodate everyone. And all I can say to you is you are welcome to apply. However, applying does not guarantee work. However, we have now, in the past, once a law firm was on our panel, they were on our panel indefinitely. However, in order to be fair and ensure that we bring in as many people as possible, what we are doing now is that we are having a panel process that renews every 5 years, so that if you didn't get in this year, there's another opportunity possibly in 5 years' time for us to look at other law firms to try and spread the word around, the work around. And again, we are trying as much as possible to spread the word, the work around, but I know that in the bigger scheme of the lawyers in the country, we are just but a drop in the ocean. But yeah.
Thank you, Zanele, for that. We have exactly time for 2 more questions. First the lady here, and then the lady there. Oh, sorry, I look a bit skew. Do you have a microphone? Sir, can we just have it? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Angela Khwedi. I am an attorney, a notary, and a conveyancer based in Polokwane. My question is similar to hers, but different in that what I've seen from the time I was a candidate until I've opened up my own practice is that most of the work is given to the firms in Gauteng. But we've got the same qualifications, we do the same amount of work, but then we only get a third of it because now we are acting as correspondents. There's the firm that I did my articles at, we did, I think 80% of the work was correspondent work. So much that Polokwane went into a panic when court was going online to say, sure, what are we going to eat? Because all our work is coming from the firms in Gauteng. And now court is going to be online. They're going to be uploading their own documents. They're going to be doing everything by themselves. Why is it that the firms in, the outskirts like your Limpopo are doing correspondent work for firms in Gauteng, but we both went to school together. We both have the LLBs. I wrote one of the hardest exams in the country that you can ever write, conveyancing. It's extremely hard, but I worked so hard at it that I passed it at my first attempt. It's unheard of for someone to pass their conveyancing exam first attempt, but I wanted it so bad because I was so Thank you. I was told that no, if you're a conveyancer, a black young female conveyancer, black notary, it's easier for you, but that's not the truth. It's probably on paper, but that's not how it happens, because I do have my colleagues as well who are conveyancers and notaries, but the work is not there. If you get the work, you're going to get it from a big firm in Gauteng, because the work is hardly given to firms in Polokwane. And if the firm in Polokwane gets it, it's going to be we've got firms that we call them our big five in Polokwane, because they are a bit of the bigger firms, the older firms. And even with work like from Worksman's, ENA's, Bowman's, even them, when they give correspondent work on big matters, it will go to the bigger firms. But no one gives the young black female attorney the work. And if you don't give me the work, I'm not going to get the experience. I can have a firm that I know with most banks, you apply and they say they want 5 years. But in 5 years, if I don't get the work, I'm not going to have the experience either. I'm just going to have a firm that is 5 years old, but I don't have the experience as well. So one of the things I did was to register my firm with the LPC, but also have a senior register as a consultant under my firm, so that at least people see that, okay, I'm not just alone. I do have someone. As she said, that it's very important that for some clients that when they give someone the work, they know that, okay, I'm giving the junior the work, but she's got seniors backing her up, So I wanted to ask the big corporations to say, give the firms in the Bundus a chance. Give the firms out there an opportunity. Let us also have the full slice of the cake and not just that tiny portion for being correspondent attorneys.
Yeah, very well said. Thank you. Last but not least, the lady in pink.
Evening, everyone. My name is Butumelo Khokho from Pabasa. So my question to the panel is, we've heard how Judge has referred to men shooting from the hip and being risk takers. So from what I observed when I walked in here this evening was that there is some inherent doubt in women and, systematic, patriarchal society, etc., contributing to that. But what golden nuggets can you give to us to carry us through in terms of how to approach this male-dominated world that we live in the sense that when I walked in, I realized that most of the women gravitated towards the back. And I walked in and I asked, why is it so empty in front? And I just want to know how, what advice or golden nuggets you've used in your career to pivot you to get where you are in terms of fighting, what is that thing called? Imposter syndrome. Yes. To say that, come to the front, because you can get you into the room, but if you don't take up space and come to the front, there really won't be any change. How do we then get women from just being space occupiers, but actually coming to the front and taking up spaces the same way that men shoot from the hip, take risks? What golden nuggets can you give us? Because a practical example I can give of what kind of advice I would like is that I have to mentally prepare when I go to spaces to say, don't forget, keep your hand firm when you shake hands, stand up straight, speak audibly, things like that. That what is the golden nugget that has kept you and that you've kept inculcated in your mind to get this far and has helped you pivot to be a strong woman in law? Thank you.
Thank you very much. What a great question to end the questions.
Yeah. Can I take a stab?
Please.
Boitumelo, Sheryl Sandberg wrote a book called Lean In. And there are lots of things I don't like about Sheryl Sandberg, but what she's right about is this lean in analogy, which is that when you walk into a boardroom, like Anna was talking about, women often, how there are chairs on the outskirts, and then there's the boardroom table. Women will often sit on the chairs on the outskirts, and she said, lean in, sit at the table. And the only way you can do it, imposter syndrome is real. And even as we get older, it's easier, but it exists, right? We all suffer from it. So the only way you can get over it is to force yourself into those situations that make you uncomfortable. And I heard Wim Trenggrove once said to me that he still sweats every time he's about to argue a case. And I remember thinking, if Wim Trenggrove is sweating before a case, then it's actually okay for me to be shivering and sweating before a case, right? But the trick is you can't show that. It's what Judge Faiza was saying, is you've got to fake it. So the tips are walk in, sit at the front of the room. Doesn't matter what anyone thinks. Go in and do that. Put your hand out, introduce yourself to someone, make eye contact. The thing I tell junior women about appearing in court is that judges, I have seen, have often switch off when women argue when your voice rises in pitch. I don't think women judges do this, but male judges do this. And what you have to be conscious about is how you sound. So modulate your voice, be clear, speak slowly, speak clearly, and keep a low tone, because you're dealing with all kinds of prejudices that you'll never fix in that judge, right? Or the person that you're meeting in the boardroom. So you have to try and accommodate for that, and you have to force yourself into uncomfortable situations. Don't be scared of the unknown. Just give it a try.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
And actually, the importance of the voice, I've learned that recently, that lowering the voice, actually it doesn't just deal with how people perceive you and how people listen to you. It also calms you down, because when you raise your voice, actually you are nervous and uncertain. But it's, I think we are different people, and we have different strengths and weaknesses. And most of the time, when you walk into the room, you are thinking only of the things that where you're not strong, or of your weaknesses, and forget the strengths of you just being there. For me, in most cases, it's a matter of you walk into a room and you think, oh my goodness, but you have to think, oh, actually I'm here. And that is all that matters. I'm here. And as women, we're very, very hard on ourselves. We want to be perfect. And you want to speak only when you are perfect. And if you wait for that moment, in fact, when you are thinking of being perfect, all you're focusing on is yourself, when actually you will do more speaking if you're focusing on the people in the room and what's going on in the room. And for me, those have been the things that I've been trying to do, to not focus on what I need to say, but focus on what is going on around me, what people are saying. Because all the information is in your head. You just need to listen and stop listening to yourself.
Yeah. If I can add to that, just be firm. Just be firm. So very often I find that when we in judges' conferences, you're talking and a man will interrupt you. Because you say, oh, let me add on to that. And I said, excuse me, I'm not finished. You'll have your turn to speak once I'm finished. So you've got to be firm. You've actually got to be firm. I think, you get accused of being too ambitious, or being a grumpy old woman, or whatever it is. But doesn't matter. No matter what they say, when they see women succeeding, men don't like it. A lot of my friends love it. A lot of men love it, but other men are threatened by it. So just be firm. You've got to learn to be firm. I've learned that. Even in court, there were so many times when you're addressing counsel and asking them a question. The moment you kind of become too gentle with them, they take advantage of the situation. The moment when you're firm, they will then respond, in the way you want them to respond. So just remember that. Firmness. I believe in it.
Thank you, Judge. Thanks for ending on that powerful nugget. I now want to end and thank every single person on this panel who've added so much value today. Real pearls of wisdom, real information, things that will make you think tonight. And there's so much out there, but important to learn from each other, support each other, and lift each other up, always. And you never stop learning, ever. There's so much information out there immediately, because I have a coaching business. I'm running through every YouTube video that I've ever read on imposter syndrome and Julian Treasure, how to speak that people listen. So there's a lot of information out there. And you can overcome the stereotypes. You can. It is totally possible through authenticity and vulnerability. I would love to continue this conversation now in the networking open session where we can meet more people and talk to more people. I'm sorry we've run out of time. We've known it's going to happen, and it went like that. So I hope we can all network together and just get to know each other a little bit better. Thank you very much.
Sorry, can I just say one last thing?
Sorry. Hello? Zanele just wants to say a last thing.
So this morning, as I was listening to the radio, there was talk about the fact that women in South Africa are amongst the most marginalized. And I mean, we are in this room, and I think one thing I would like for us all to remember is that we are actually the top 1%. And that in everything that we do, we always need to think about the really marginalized women in our country and try to do as much as possible to give back and make sure that we do something for those marginalized women. And it doesn't have to be the woman who does not have an education. It can be that law student at law school who doesn't have anywhere to go for their articles, that we need to try and bring those people up, because they still face the real challenges of this country.
Thank you very much.